So, Oren, this question of how scientists approach what they do and how artists approach what they do, I think that we have quite a bit in common. I think we have a bit in common. Like we both practice skills and develop expertise and hone crafts that we use to get to the core of whatever it is that's interesting to us. And since so many of my friends are artists, I assume there's going to be a lot of artists seeing this. But when we were talking about this before, you said some very interesting things to me about the role of creativity, the role and value of creativity in scientific method. I was wondering if you might share some thoughts on that.
Yeah, I love it. This is a super interesting thread, Chris. And I have, the older I get, I have more and more admiration for artists per se, and also for let's call it the artist in scientists, or pick whatever, the artist in something that you don't normally think of as art related.
Yeah.
I happen to think, and actually, I mean, I spent a long time in Tony Fauci's laboratory and, doing lab stuff. I mean, I was a lab rat for years. And the reason that I left it was because I felt that I was I was okay at it. I was okay with the following down a path, right? But I didn't feel that I had that spark of creativity that allows some people to do real discovery science. And that's a tiny fraction of what's done in science. I mean, you read the medical and scientific literature, it's good, it advances, right? But it's not a discovery, it's not something truly novel, right? That kind of stuff is done by a very, very small number of people. And I think those are the artists. Those are people who have both parts of their brain working so that they can follow a logical path and be rigorous about it, but they can also think very creatively outside the confines of what is known. So I was okay, and I think, the vast majority of scientists are okay at navigating the known and advancing that ball, right? But this other part, the discovery part, the truly novel stuff, I think those people are, I would call them artist scientists. I really, really, really do believe that that discovery, truly breakthrough novel discovery science is done by people who are truly artist scientists. And I think that's true. I think it's true in physical sciences as well. It may be because people who are studying things out in the cosmos, right? And then people who are studying tiny things, signaling molecules and viruses infecting cells. So microscopes, molecular techniques. I think that maybe forces you to think outside the confines of this, the everyday three-dimensional reality. And I think that's probably true of artists as well, that they're getting to a place that's outside context of the here and now three-dimensional space sometimes.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes sense.
I certainly, for me personally, I'm always trying to get outside of that space. That's like what I do, and that's one way to do it. And then there are other people who just push in the other direction just to try to get into the core of the most familiar possible and share that. It's very there's more than one way to skin a cat, as they say. One thing that really would be helpful in getting a our hands around this situation would be if everyone could be tested, whether they were symptomatic or asymptomatic or completely healthy. It's like the more we know about everybody, then you have like data that can be worked with to understand better like what's going on and how to control it. And I just wanted to ask you, with your decades of experience in the trenches of some of the most challenging viral threats to public health in our lifetimes and stuff like this, like where would you rank comprehensive testing of everyone on your list of weapons in trying to get control of the situation?
Yeah, it's a great question, Chris, and I think it's really probably the one totally essential weapon. You think, you think about the original SARS back in 2002. That was a pretty deadly virus, and it did break out. You know, we had 8,000 cases in 26 countries, and wiped it out, right? It successfully, through isolation and contact tracing, it was totally eliminated. And the reason for that was we were lucky, because with the original SARS virus, people didn't develop very high levels of virus and therefore didn't become very infectious until after they developed symptoms. This virus is different. This virus, and I remember the very first report from the traveler from China back to Germany, and it was reported in the New England Journal of Medicine that the index case transmitted to other business colleagues when they were asymptomatic. And everyone said, that's impossible, that can't happen. And it turns out to be true. But with this virus, people become infectious about probably 2 to 3 days before they develop symptoms. And the height of their infectiousness is actually 0.7 days before they develop symptoms. So without testing, you have nothing. You have nothing. A very, very significant portion of transmission is occurring in people who have no symptoms. And so if you just wait, essentially the way most countries are managing through this is you look at indicators like how many people are showing up deadly sick in your hospitals and ICUs.
That only tells part of the story, right?
I'm sorry?
I'm sorry. That only tells just a part of the story, right?
Yeah, exactly. And it doesn't help you very much in terms of getting ahead of it. The only way to get ahead of it is with much more comprehensive testing. And it's doable. I mean, people need to pay attention to the data. And in the same way, vaccine, this is not a vaccine that's going to be given to a few hundred people.
Right.
It's going to be given to a few billion people. And so I hope, I think that there's a way to do this if there are promising data, there could be a staged release. But there's all kinds of potential for things to go off the rails, not least of which, and this is being talked about widely, even notwithstanding a global shortage in glass vials. So you thought toilet paper was bad. Yeah. If we don't have glass vials to put vaccine doses in.
Better get on that one.
Start making glass vials.
Let's get started right now.
But, think about the issues that are playing out now in terms of governments pointing fingers at each other, playing not nice in the sandbox. And then you think about, and it's already been in the news, right? Because Sanofi, a French company, but obviously a huge presence in the U.S., collaborating with the U.S. government on a vaccine development program. And the CEO basically said that the U.S. would be entitled to, the first priority of produced vaccine because the U.S. government, was investing in it. Maybe. But I mean, France's president was none too pleased and called the man into his office. There's Chinese groups. The Chinese have several promising vaccine candidates. The UK has one promising vaccine candidate. The US has a couple. There could be some very nasty geopolitical games played with something that has the potential to have the largest impact on global human health.
Wow.
Long time. I hope it doesn't happen. I think our scientific literacy is very poor. It's a failure of our education system. And so people, again, the internet, right? People go to the internet for information, and perversely, the very thing that is supposed to provide information to everybody without the ability to critically analyze anything, people end up just, listening to what they're told by people who they trust. And I think the answer here is you got to be very careful about who you trust.
Thank you.
And people don't trust anyone. I mean, it's like reading Ayn Rand. I mean, the world's upside down. We don't trust experts. Oh, that's you're an expert in viral diseases. Well, that's ridiculous. You must be telling falsehoods. I don't know why. I don't understand the logic there. But I mean, I worked with the man for 10 years, and Tony Fauci is as apolitical a person as I have ever met in my life. He is truly apolitical. He has dedicated his life and his career to public service, to advancing science, and has probably done more than any other single individual over so many decades in that. He has been a huge force in fighting HIV and in communicating effectively to the public about outbreaks of you name it. I mean, Zika virus, Ebola, this virus. He's not political, and to be vilified for providing scientific guidance is really profoundly disturbing to me. It really is.
I really appreciate you sharing that, sir. What I don't understand is why some people think that people who deal in these types of activities, there's nothing political about the work. So it just doesn't really make much sense that there would be this bolus of conniving deep state. It's like you want to go and talk to trillionaires about that, okay, but scientists,
right? Tony, what would Tony have to gain by putting his thumb on the scale one side or the other? It's just he's just trying to provide evidence-based recommendations, which is hard to do. There's a lot of unknown, but to just say he's got some kind of
angle,
agenda, or it's nuts.
Well, You brainiacs are not to be trusted, my friend. Sorry.
Apparently not.